the door. So welcome. My name is Jen Best, Director of National Fellowships. We're going to do our little presentation on the Truman Scholarship. The focus of this one is really if you're applying this year, so plan ahead, 100%. This way you'll know what's lying ahead of you. But if we could do quick introductions, since it's a small group, and that way we kind of know who we're dealing with and what you're interested in and who we all are. And then I'll go through some details. But I will start with Laura Louise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Louise. I'm a senior bar student studying medical humanities and public policy. And I was the Truman finalist for South Carolina, and the university last year. Yep. So,
yeah. She's one of our fellowship peer mentors, so a fantastic resource for many things, but especially Truman. All right, off with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Benitez. I'm a junior journalism major, Spanish minor, pre-law. And yeah, I'm really excited to learn more.
Sounds good.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Sam Maloney. I'm here as a freshman. That's why she's like, plan ahead.
Yes, yes.
So put the notebook away.
You can take notes, it's fine.
Yeah, and for now, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I want to think ahead about this because it's a fantastic fellowship. Let's get to it like it.
Yep. Welcome.
And it's harder to get into than it.
Pretty much, yes. For the most part. We'll see.
I'm sorry?
Some good scholar.
Oh, thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Paxton. I'm a junior arts major, environmental policy, French minor. And I have no idea what I want to do yet, so this might be it.
I guess I'll start next. Hey everyone, my name is Blake, junior, dual major in geography and poli sci. I've always been interested in the public sector. Right now, I'm actually working at the Comet, so doing transportation planning in the public sector. I really like the municipality, the local level, state level. So just kind of figure out what to do with that and, keep interested.
Cool.
I'm Felicity. I'm a political science and history major with a public relations minor. I'm a senior. I'm also a state and local policy science now, so I appreciate that. Yeah. So hopefully, like sort of like rural economic development, poverty alleviation, something.
None of your problems to be
I'm
solved.
also a junior. I'm political science and philosophy and pre-law with a special interest in constitutional law and judiciary.
Cool. That's a good range. And my colleagues.
Hello, everyone. My name is Camilla Colley. I'm National Fellowship Coordinator.
And hi, I'm Ethan Knight. I know actually quite a few of you guys. I'm the fellowships coordinator for STEM competitions. So welcome.
So on the board behind me and in front of me, you're going to see this is our cover page. This is the stage at the Presidential Library in Liberty, Missouri, where if you are a Truman Scholar, you walk across the stage and get your award. So since I had that on my camera, I was like, we're going to use it. This could be you. Envision yourself walking across the stage. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about what the Truman Scholarship is, what the application looks like, the kinds of things you're looking for. And then we have several slides that are going to be words of wisdom from previous finalists, not just from USC, but we're kind of collated in 2018, I think, from the region of just like things people wanted to emphasize or wish you would know as a scholar. Laura Louise, I'm going to invite you to just sort of chime in at all points across this, since you have lived this. So the basics, the Truman Scholarship, this is the living memorial to Harry Truman. So he didn't want like a big monument built to him. He wanted to fund a scholarship that would encourage people to be involved in public service. He comes from small town Missouri. He like finished his presidential run and got on the train and went back home and just lived a very quiet life, but was very interested in how regular people can become public servants and thought that was really important. So this is in his honor. It is for college juniors committed to a career in public service. Public service very broadly defined, and level very broadly defined, right? So local level, state level, national level, international, like whichever you're interested in, that's what Truman wants to support. So there's not like a typical specific pathway you have to follow or thing you're interested in. It's just what do you care about and what are you trying to change and make better. Ultimately, we talk about this because it gives you $30,000 that you can use for grad school. So 2 years, $15,000 each. It's one of the few awards that you can use really for any graduate program. So if you're interested in law school or med school, even business school, all sorts of things, this is something that you can use. And you do not have to go immediately to graduate school with this, just a heads up. Sometimes that's a question. So they want you to eventually go to grad school, otherwise you won't get any money. But there are other benefits too, because if you become a Truman Scholar, you have this leadership week of programming that takes place in Liberty, Missouri. It's at William Jewell College, and it's all the Truman Scholars come together and do lots of different things, actually, a whole bunch of different stuff. They put them in groups and they work on policy and they talk about leadership and they create their network, basically. And then it also potentially can include a summer internship in Washington, D.C. this summer after you graduate as a senior. And so they sort of help you identify places that you would want to work and they house Truman Scholars together. That's not required, but it is available and encouraged. So it is more than just the scholarship. It really is about becoming a member of this community of Truman Scholars. That's what they are trying to offer you. They call it the True Fam, which I don't love necessarily, but I think if I was a Truman Scholar, I'd probably love it more to be part of the True Fam. So to be eligible, you need to be a college junior, and that's by expected graduation date. If you're planning on graduating early, it's basically always in your third year. So if you're graduating in 3 years, you apply in your third year. If you're graduating in 4 years, you apply in your third year. That makes it nice and easy. You need to plan a career in public service. Again, they don't really define that. That just is the term. They're looking at your record of public and community service. So they want to see what have you been involved in. It's one of the few applications that actually allows you to put some high school activities on it because they want to show that, they want to see that longevity of interest. Certainly your interest may have shifted, but they kind of like to see that you were doing something back in high school that gave some kind of clue that this was the direction that you were going. You need to show outstanding leadership potential. And I want to emphasize the potential in that. They do have questions about leadership and they want to see that you have leadership skills, that you are developing them, but it is about the potential, right? Like the phrase that they toss around is change agent. They want to find change agents. So what do you have in your experiences that you can really draw from and point to that show that leadership potential and that you are someone who has made a difference in whatever area you're interested in, right? It sort of has a GPA requirement, not really. They want you to be in the top quarter of your class. We usually have seen scholars and finalists and everybody with a 3.6 or higher, but it is not as GPA driven as some other awards, I would say. What they want to see is a match between your GPA and the graduate program that you're interested in. So as long as that matches, you're pretty good to go with GPA. You need to be a US citizen or a US national from American Samoa, which seems really particular to me, so I'm not really sure why. So we're just going to focus on citizen. And it to be nominated by USC. So this is a nominated competition. One of the reasons we have this session is to talk about what the application looks like. So we have a committee of faculty that meet, that will review your application materials, that will interview you, that will select the nominees, and then continue to work extensively with the nominees. So we typically have 4 slots. What are they looking for? No surprise here. Public service record and commitment, your leadership record, the appropriateness of your proposed grad study for long-term goals, and we'll talk about your grad program in a minute as we get deeper into the application, but the fit between those things, and the overall quality of your application. It is a holistic review of your application, right? They're looking at all the pieces. There's not one thing that stands out more than the others, it's everything all together. Sounds easy, right? So far, so good. We checked all the boxes. We have all Truman Scholars in this room. There's more than 4 of you, I'm sorry to say. So why should you apply? Why should you apply? But I'll tell you why we think you should apply, and then you can chime in as to why you applied and what that was worth. So this is probably one of the most rigorous fellowship applications out there. The questions that it asks are somewhat daunting. There's not a lot of space to answer them, right? So writing succinctly is very important. But they ask you to think about not only your commitment to a variety of things, but they do ask you to do things like, what grad program do you want to do? What kind of job do you want when you finish grad school? What do you want to be doing 5 to 7 years after that, right? So it's really forecasting out there and saying like, what is the dream path? Nothing that they're going to hold you to, okay? So whatever grad program you apply for Truman, if you don't do that grad program, that's 100% fine. But they want to see that you have sat down and really started thinking about the pathway that you want to be on to accomplish the goals that you have. And does it make sense, right? That's mostly, does it make sense? In so answering those questions, you yourself get to clarify and communicate those long-term goals, because I don't know about you, but it sounded like a lot of you aren't super sure of the long-term goals specifically. You might have kind of a big picture, like something in this area, or like this is an issue, or this is a place, or these are some people, and that's fine. The reason that we encourage you to look at this application is because trying to answer those questions will help give you clarity, right? You don't need to know right now what all the answers to the essay questions are and have it all finalized. What you submit for the campus process is never what goes to the national process, right? Like it is a total, all hands on deck, working it out. It is really a process. You will establish faculty connections. That includes with your own recommenders as well as the committee members. So it just strengthens your network and gets you to talk about things and explore in different ways. You learn to take constructive criticism. You're going to get that from a lot of different sides, right? And it's all meant to help your application be as strong as possible. That can be easy to know and hard to feel, I think, sometimes, because you will get a lot of feedback. And when you're getting feedback from a lot of different people, it can sometimes be conflicting too. And you have to figure out for yourself, like, what am I hearing? What are the suggestions I'm getting, and what ultimately feels authentic and real to you? Okay. You get a head start on considering grad school and career path. I don't know about you, but most juniors are not sitting in this room thinking about a scholarship for grad school yet, let alone freshmen. So you got a really good head start. But it does set you up early in your junior year so that your senior year is actually going to be a lot smoother, right? I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but it'll be easier because you have already started looking at some of these options. You've already had letters of recommendation. You already have a list of grad schools you want to apply to. You have essay materials you can pull from. So it really is a head start. It can be a springboard for other competitions and grad school applications. So you can, again, use this materials for other things, whether as a junior or a senior or even down the road. And ultimately, you should apply because you become a Truman Scholar. But we're sneaky and we list that last because that's the least likely thing to happen, right? But everything else could happen if you apply, just that one. And I will say that even those who don't become scholars tell us that they benefit from the process, which seems like a great segue for me to give to Laura Louise.
Yeah, so just listening to Jen speak, it's interesting because like I was in y'all's shoes a little bit more than a year ago, but because this is something that I had considered. I came in my freshman year, my advisor told me that this is something I needed to apply for, and I was like, I don't know what. I was a dance major, and I did not know. Okay, so yeah, so I would say one of the biggest things is that really this does prepare you for so many other things. When it comes to applications and things like that. For example, I'm applying to law school. I took the LSAT last week. And my personal statement was so easy to write. Like normally the personal statement is the biggest like bump when it comes to applying to law school. And it was just very easy for me because it was kind of just consolidating my Truman application. Like literally law school applications open Wednesday and my friends are stressed out and I'm a little like, I just kind of waiting on my LSAT score. Because I have those letters of recommendation. I know kind of what I want to do and where I want to land. And like what schools I want to go to, all those things that Tim was pointing out, like coming out of the process, even though like the outcome wasn't what I necessarily wanted, I think in the long run, it's about to make my life just so much easier, even going through it in the first place. And especially hitting on like your application is nowhere near like at the beginning what it is versus when you actually submit it like nationally in February. Because I remember I wrote my first draft and sent it to Jen in like May, following my sophomore year, and like that then versus when I actually submitted in February, my goals had changed, my like intended program, JD and PH had changed, like everything had shifted all around because it forced me to, research kind of what am I actually interested in, what can I see myself doing long term, and actually like chartering like a 7 to 10 year plan for my life, and also reflecting on literally every activity, political, non-political, public service, high school, that I've done over my college career and listing it all out in this like 15-page application. And even just like reading back over it, and now it's like, I don't know, it's almost like a lesson plan for my life a little bit. And that's like a very helpful thing to have. So I would say all those things to encourage you guys, even if you aren't sure exactly like what you want to do, that this process honestly can, if anything, help you figure that out. And it forces you to, and even if you, I guess the nomination date is probably like in October. Okay, so
October
even-
19th.
yeah, so like a month and a half, 2 months. That may not seem like a lot of time, but like, I think that especially the committee, they look a lot more at your potential and like what your application could be and the kind of candidate that you could be, rather than what's physically on the paper, at that time, because nobody's application is the same 4 months later at all. My interview skills then versus later, completely different. So that was like a lot of me saying the same thing a little bit, but I just really, really, really want to encourage anybody that's interested in applying to apply. And if y'all have like specific questions for me about like any of it, even throughout the application process, like feel free to reach out to me and I'm willing to help. Yeah.
Are you sold yet?
He's sold.
He's sold. All right, nuts and bolts. What are all these mysterious pieces that we're talking about that you come up with? So there are about 6 numbered questions that provide basic background information about high school, your public service activities, your government activities, your jobs, your recognitions and awards. One of the things I would say is it's helpful to just start out by dumping all of that out onto a big list, and then we can help you figure out like how to slot it into the right place. Truman does not require that you have an activity in every single category, but it's good to have something in every single category. It's just some could be more heavily weighted than others, right? Some of you might have like a ton of governmental experience, and that's great. Some of you might really be like, do I have any governmental experience? Uh-oh, and that's okay too. You probably have a lot of other things that are fitting in categories of like jobs and public service activities. So we'll help you massage that. The focus of the application are these 7 short essay questions. And I say short, between 200 and 500 words. They've got character counts in the online system. For the campus process, there's a word count. We use the word version because for campus, we're not concerned with like making it as tight as possible. So you can kind of go over them. But ultimately, you're going to be shooting for, we're talking less than 3,000 words total for this application, which is kind of scary to say. So question 7 is discuss a specific example of your leadership. So they want you to be really specific, like an example, and they want you to tell us what did you do as a leader. That answer should kind of reveal how you think about leadership, how you define leadership, because what you want to do is set the expectation in that answer of like, a leader is this, or a good leader does X. Here's how I've done that. And they're like, oh, okay, yes, you are a leader. You've done that. Great. And so there's lots of different things that can come from. Question 8 is describe a recent meaningful public service activity. And so there's 2 keys to this. The question is, what is meaningful, right? And why was that meaningful to you? And also public service. So think about the difference between public service and community service. I have a really hard time like describing this difference, but it is distinct. And a lot of it has to do with scope, right? So, making sandwiches for the homeless on Saturday is a wonderful thing to do. That's pretty much community service. That's not quite public service, right? So thinking about things that you do that might have more of a systemic change kind of focus. What did you talk about for your public service activity?
Dance.
That's right.
I talked
Clearly
about-
public service.
Yeah, it was
That's
just
right,
for
yeah.
context. And we had to fight that.
Yes.
That was the one answer that we fought literally until I turned it in to try and make it sound like public service fully. Because it felt like public service to me, we were like, it may not be. So I basically helped run a dance program out of my church, but we basically would reach out into the community and bring girls in. And just like, but it wasn't just a dance class, like it was also like building into them as like younger girls, and like encouraging them that, I can't remember what I wrote, encouraging them, I'm being honest, encouraging them that like they still have like a place in society, even though like, the world overlooks young Black women a lot. And that just kind of informed, and I guess there's one thing
Yeah.
to add, the leadership and public service activity, they don't have to be exactly what your career is, because most people in those examples, you don't actually know what your career is when you do those things. But it kind of informs like why you see the world the way you do. So both of mine had to do with advocating for women, and my whole thing is maternal health reform. But it had nothing to do with maternal health in and of itself, because there were things I did my freshman year of college, sophomore year of college, but it kind of, and that's the order that it shows on the application. It kind of
Right.
made sense going
Of course,
into
yeah.
the need I wanted to address.
Well, and I
So,
think that goes to, like, the meaningfulness was the bigger emphasis for you than the public service necessarily, right? Like, it was still an example, but it was like, it's because this
Yeah.
helped shape your view and who you're focused on. So those are two really specific, really focused questions. I'm gonna say something because I don't think I actually mentioned it on this slide. There also are 3 recommendations that are required that are really specifically targeted. So you need a letter that speaks to your leadership, and that person should be able to confirm your leadership example. Doesn't mean that they oversaw it, they were your supervisor or anything. They can be, that's great, but a lot of times you're showing leadership because there aren't other other adults in charge, right? Like, you guys are doing things. So you need someone who can talk about that. The same is true for your public service letter. You need someone who can talk about your commitment to public service, who can confirm whatever activity you choose to write about, but doesn't necessarily have to have been there to see you do it. The third letter is an academic reference who can talk about your preparedness for the grad degree that you're thinking about. Okay. Slow me down and ask me questions at any point. Hello. Because I can just talk about this stuff all the time. Ethan is going to take your attendance, and we're talking through the application for Truman. So that's question 7, questions 8. Question 9 is the need of society that you want to address in your career. So this is the big picture. What is the problem? So what is the problem or need of society that you want to dedicate yourself to? This is big picture. They want you to try to quantify a little bit, like, tell us why this problem is so bad. Like, why is this a problem? Give us some numbers. But it is really big picture. That's a shortish answer, but it gives shape to the whole application, right? And there's a question about your proposed graduate program. So specific degree, specific school, and why. Why is that the program that you're looking at? Okay, so you can consider things like what the program itself actually entails, what kind of degree it is, what kind of opportunities exist for research or internships or things within that, yeah.
It's about, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Are the 3 letters due by campus summit?
Yes. Good question. Yes, I'll get you the timeline before you leave. Yes. So specific program, specific school, could be the location of the school is important. If you're going to go to a school in DC, so you have access to national level things, that's great. New York, because there's specific populations, I've seen all sorts of different things. And that's where it needs to match your academic letter, your GPA, your major, like, it needs to make sense that this is the next step. It is a proposed graduate program. They don't force you to go to that school, but they want you to find one. Then there's an essay about what do you plan to do right after you finish that grad degree. And then there's the question of your plans 5 to 7 years after you finish that grad degree. So this is projecting in the future. So part of this is they want you to show that you understand where the power is. If you've identified the problem that you want to work on, how do you have the power to solve that? Who has the power to solve that? How do you position yourself to be that person? And so forecasting yourself in the future is a way of demonstrating, like, I understand that to get this done, I need to be in this kind of role. And if that kind of role doesn't exist, I'm going to create that kind of role, right? And so 5 to 7 is the ballpark. One of the things that Dr. Smith, Shelley Smith, who is the longtime chair of this committee, often recommends is actually you start with that and work backwards. Like, if this is the ultimate job that you want, then what kind of work do you need to do when you get out of grad school? What kind of grad degree do you need to do that kind of work, right? So you can engineer it, you can reverse engineer it depending on which direction you have a better sense of.
And this is starting with the policy proposal, or is it your after graduation?
Policy proposal does not have a time on it. It's totally separate. If you decide not to go straight into grad school, which is fine, usually you want to take a sentence or two in the grad school essay to sort of say what you would do. Like, first I'm going to work, for a year to get this kind of experience. And then when I go to grad school, I'm going to do this, and then I'll have the job, right? So If med school is your direction, you don't have to talk about your residency, right? You can be like post-residency, like this is what I want to do. So there's all sorts of ways you can do that. Then there's everybody's favorite question, additional information. Wide open. What else do you think the committee needs to know about you? This can be, I would say that this is either a really easy, obvious answer for people, or it's really difficult to figure out what to put in this. There's not a lot in between, right? And it really is any information that you want to share with the committee that you think that they should know about you. I think what is most helpful is to think of it as a way to like tie everything together in the application and explain why this is the thing that you want to do. And the reasons for that are as different as every single human being in the world, right? So there's no one obvious answer to this question for everybody. Some people, it really is a struggle to figure it out, but I think that's actually part of the most, it's like the biggest benefit of the reflective process. You've got to wrestle with it and figure out, why is this the thing that you want to do? Where did this come from? How did you get started on this path and this interest? Really dig into it. And we're happy to talk with you about that. We're happy to look at, you can write different versions of it. If you're not sure what to put in there, especially for the campus process, we'll take more than one answer for these, right? Don't give me a full double application of every question. But if you're like, I have these two leadership answers, I'm not really sure which one I want to use, you can write both of them. If you've got all this information and additional information that you want to throw out there, you can share it, because the committee wants to know as much about you as possible in determining the nominees, and then we will help you to shape it into the small final version of the application. So that, and again, I don't know why I don't have the letters on this, but the policy proposal is required for the national level. We don't require it for the campus process because we found it really stressed students out for no good reason. Like, because everyone rewrites that policy proposal anyway. So we were like, let's just not require it for nomination. So we will work with you. But what that is the 500-word policy proposal that you write that addresses some small slice of that need of society that you want to address in your career, right? And it can be pitched to any level of government. What they're looking for is, are you pitching it to the right level, the right person? Again, knowing the power, right? Who can do this? It's a problem statement, it's a proposed solution, and then it's identify some obstacles. All of that in 500 words. So it's pretty.
One thing on that, because this is what helped me, because we didn't have to write the policy proposal before, but I always knew what I wanted to do. Like I always, like in figuring out like what I wanted to go to grad school for, whatever, like it was all because, and I'll just give y'all context, like my policy proposal was about mandating doula coverage for like all women under Medicaid and private insurance and making it a requirement nationwide. Because it was something that, because of my story with my mom and everything, I'm like, if that had been the case, we wouldn't have had all the maternal health issues that we did. And kind of knowing that in my mind, because I feel like a lot of y'all probably know, like, this is something in society I want to fix. And I know this is how I can fix it. Sometimes that's what helps you fold backwards into realizing, you know, this is what I want to do, or this is what I do after grad school or whatever. Or this is how I can get to this point where I could make this proposal. Like, where would this come from if I was in that position or whatever? So I know that was something that just thinking about that, I guess that's the same as the need in society a little bit, but thinking about like, how would I solve this issue helped me to think about, to break down all the different pieces of, okay, this is the plan to even get there in the first place.
Yeah. Yes, you're not forbidden from thinking about the policy proposal. Yeah. And they may ask you, I mean, they don't always ask, but they might ask, like, what are you thinking about for your policy proposal in the interview on campus with the committee, just to kind of see if you've got any ideas. But, okay, I'm mindful of your time. Okay, we got you for 10 more minutes. Okay. Application process. So sample application on the Truman website, truman.gov. That's what you're going to submit. It's a Word document. It's kind of obnoxiously formatted. I apologize in advance, but it has all of the prompts. So submit the application in mid-October, includes recommendations. It's October 19th is the deadline this year. That's a Tuesday. Then you would be interviewed by the committee. It kind of depends on how many applications we get if everybody gets an interview. So if we have a lot of applicants, they will do a first paper cut and look. So it is important what's in your application, right? It's not a given that they'll talk to you. But they do try to talk to as many people as they can because they do really want to see you. And because Truman at the national level involves interviews. So they do kind of want to see, how do you handle yourself in person as well. They'll select 4 nominees. You get assigned committee members to mentor you through the process. We continue to work on your application. We'll have a workshop on the policy proposal. We have a workshop on leadership. We'll do interviewing tips. So you have through the end of fall semester to continue to revise it. And then the final application is submitted at the end of January. They do a really quick turnaround. It's very fast, 2 weeks. They'll announce finalists in mid-February, and then you are interviewed nationally in March. Trumans are awarded by state, basically. Okay, so there are about 60 Truman Scholars every year. There's only 50 states. So there are some states that have more than one Truman Scholar by population. They also have scholars from like Puerto Rico and Guam. So, but essentially it's basically one Truman Scholar per state. And it's state of residency. It's not state where you attend school. Yeah. Everything's fine. So when I say national interview in March, well, they are all in March. So most students up in South Carolina are from South Carolina or close enough that you are going to Atlanta. But I don't know if they're doing virtual this year or not. We'll find out. They were last year. So good time. So that's it. That sounds easy, right? That's totally doable this semester. Whatever. So I'm going to go through, these are some quick quotes. Dr. Simmons always likes to share these as like an emphasis of what Truman finalists have learned, right? So don't apply to win, apply to learn more about yourself and figure out your story and where you want to take it. So this is an opportunity, right? This is why we encourage you to apply. It is valuable. I know it can feel like a lot of time. We are here for you. We're all investing in this with you, but you do want to take it as an opportunity because again, I think we've shared a lot of the reasons, other things you benefit from. Right. Think of the application as a whole, not as distinctive answers. You want to brainstorm distinctive answers, but you do want to find, we talk about finding the thread. Like what is the thread that runs throughout all of your answers so that we can see, okay, Harrison's issue is this, right? Like I can see that in everything. So they're all interconnected. I think that's why you don't have to consider the leadership and public service examples as having to be exactly what you want to do in your future. They are parts of your story and your experience that you're weaving together. Yeah, and that last one, right? If you feel something contributes a lot to your personal development, don't throw it out because it doesn't seem to fit as well. Like keep working with it. Okay. Sometimes you know the thread, and sometimes you don't figure out the thread until you put everything together and you're like, nothing in this makes sense. And then this is one of the benefits of it being a process. We can look at it and be like, well, I'm seeing this running through all of these pieces. Have you thought about this as your theme or thread? So it can go both ways. Either you know exactly how you want to weave it together, or you throw it all out there and then figure out what that pattern is. But it's there because they're all things that you did. I tell students, right? It's like, there's no pattern. I just did it. Like, but you did it. There must have been a reason that you did it. So let's figure out what that is. You do want to write well. And because there are such strict word limits, it is really important to think about how you're presenting yourself and how clearly you can present yourself. So I think one of the things that is really difficult at the beginning is you may have all these stories and all of this stuff that you want to share, like all the background info and all the little details, and you're like, we got to pare this down. Like, what is the most important thing in this essay, and how can we express it in 200 words? So also use active voice, not passive voice, because you're a change agent and you are doing things, right? Things are not being done to you, you are doing things. We'll talk a lot about that as we go over drafts and things like that. Don't doubt yourself and don't think you're not good enough or competitive enough, okay? We have Truman Scholars from USC. We have Truman finalists from USC. Like, this is the time to brag about all the cool things that you've done, right? Not the light under the bushel, right? Put it out there. Yes.
All right, can you go to the last slide very quickly?
Active embrace criticism. These are tough words. I'm like, these Truman Scholars, Truman finalists, you've lived through it. You're like, yes, you are competitive. Embrace everything, right? It's an intense process. It is a process, okay? I didn't mean to shout that at you, I'm sorry. But I think that you guys are all at the first early steps of this, and there is a huge benefit to coming out the other end, right? And you are not doing this on your own. You're doing this with our office, with our peer mentors, with our faculty, with your recommenders. Like, it really is And we really tried even last year virtually to like, once we have nominees too, it's like y'all are in it together. We're not against each other, right? It's how do we bring out the best in each applicant and put it forward. So it is all about the love. You will appreciate it. These are kind of repetitive, so we've covered all this. We're good. We're good. Other people's words, it's fine. So in sum, this is how to think about it, right? What's the story that you want to tell? It is the time to brag about yourself. You've got a past, present, and future. What's the overall message? Use active voice. Be authentic. I think this last point, the be authentic, don't tell us what you think we want to hear is really important, right? Tell us what you want to say. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. We'll know. We can tell. Okay, so what to do next? Talk with one of us. Truman website is truman.gov. They've got scholar profiles, they've got resources. We will make sure that you all are added to our Blackboard organization and then specifically to our Truman folder. In the Truman folder, you'll find the timeline for this year, find other resources. You'll find previous applications that you can look at from finalists and winners. Don't look at those right away because I don't want you to think that you have to look like those applications. I don't want you to think that that's what those applications looked like at the time of the campus deadline, because 100% of them did not look like that. But they're there if you kind of have been working on it and you get stuck and you're like, how do they talk about this, right? So they are a resource there for you. Work on the application. Please come talk to me and share drafts with me. I don't come August, it is August. Come August, come in August, please. Don't come October 19th with your paper in your hand and that's the first conversation that we've had about Truman. That's not going to go well, right? You're here today. There's no reason for that. Like, be working on it because you're going to be in a much better position for nomination, for selection, right? If you have actually already talked to us about it and we've worked through some things that are pretty easy to work out initially, and then it just becomes a big refining point. You do need to ask for letters of recommendation sooner rather than later to give people enough time to write those, but you also can let them know, right? I mean, we need those for the campus process because we need recommendations to evaluate your whole application, but your letter writers will also have the opportunity to update and change their letters if you're selected as a nominee, right? Because you're being nominated in October for a deadline that's in January. Your life might continue to happen and unfold in November and December, and there might be things that you want in that letter that hasn't yet happened, and that's fine. And so then submit your application. You just send it to our office in that Word document. You have the letters sent directly to us. So we don't use the online system until you're a nominee because it's really hard to pull people out. It gets messy. So that's what's next. If you don't know us, this is our website. This is where we are. So we don't actually live in Russell House. We're over in Destessor on the Horseshoe, 3rd floor. You can make an appointment. You come to this meeting. So if you want to come talk to Truman, pick the meeting that's a competition specific meeting. And say you want to talk to Truman and come meet with us. That's all I have. So I don't need applause. I think. What questions do you have? Because that's a lot. Yes.
I'm curious about what kind of recommenders people have had in the past. Because most of the professors or people in their lives that know a little bit more about them than their professors might, or if there's like an age minimum or maximum or anything like that.
Yeah, that can be a little complicated. So the only one that has to be professor is the academic one. So that 100% needs to be someone who's taught you, who can talk about your preparation for graduate school work. The other two, it's kind of wide open. You don't really want a peer or someone who is a recent peer. Recent peer we can talk about if that's really like the only person, but it's the benefit of recommendation letters is that they can put you in context and compare you to other students that they've known over the years, which a peer doesn't really have. They could say wonderful things about you and what you did, right? But they don't necessarily have the comparison piece. So that's where that gets complicated. There's definitely been like supervisors of internships, mentors. I can't remember what your.
I was involved in Department of Girls State, so I had like the director of Girls State write one of mine.
Mm-hmm.
My academic advisor wrote my public service one, but that's just
Yeah.
because she's very involved in my life and knows me very well. So that's the only reason why she was at the desk at there. And then I had one of my professors I've known for a while. So it can shake out kind of any kind of way.
Yeah, yeah. And Truman is very much like we want letters from people who know you. We don't need names. right? So position a little bit in the sense of the age gap, like the peer thing is hard. But other than that, it's really like if they know you well, they can write you the letter. Yeah. Good question. Other question.
Yes, so just to confirm, next step that's on there was to schedule an appointment on Handshake. Is that the one? Or not
Navigate,
Navigate. That's the
navigate.
one.
Yep.
There's so many apps nowadays.
I'm sorry. I apologize. You know,
Navigate.
we know it too. And then we're like, but no, why don't you guys know navigate? Because you have 8,000 other things you have to know too. And we're a little tricky. So we're on navigate. We're under involvement and engagement,
Okay.
and then national fellowships advising.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we make slides like this. And we're like, here's how to find us. Or you can just stop by and call or whatever. Like, well, we'll make it happen. But yeah. So we're electronic appointments. But yes, come chat with us. I'm sorry. I'm smiling. Can you not see I'm smiling? Other questions? I know it's a very much like I just spew information at you. I hope something sticks, but I hope that you are encouraged for Truman and that you can see that there is value. Because really, we do understand that it is a difficult, time-consuming process, but we encourage you to do it because we know the benefits, right? That on the other side, you won't regret it. And you can only apply for it at this one juncture, right? And I don't want you to miss the opportunity. So that being said, I'm not twisting anyone's arms in this room to apply, so it's totally up to you. We're also not about that because I don't want you to be miserable in it, but I do want you to seriously consider it. And I'm not looking at you, Felicity, because we've already talked about this. So it definitely is worth it. And I mean, it's one of my favorites. I really like working for Truman, and it does set you up really well. As I think Coralie suggested. So, other thoughts or questions? No? All right, well, we're good then. So we have our general handout. I have the timeline printed out so you can see. Really, the only hard date is October 19th. Right now, we haven't set the dates because we usually have to coordinate with the faculty of like, when can we meet and thing, but it has the rough outline. It also has the committee members so you can see who's on the committee on campus. One word about that is that if anyone on that committee list is someone that you know that is going to write a letter for you, that's 100% no problem, right? There's no conflict of interest. You don't have to find somebody else if that person is the perfect person for you. That's happened before.
Is it all the same?
I think so. Yeah.
I ended up taking a class from one of my committee members, and she's actually the reason why I got a scholarship in the Southern Studies program, like out of nowhere.
Nice.
After the Truman thing and everything. So they're all amazing. So
They're a pretty fun bunch. And they love it too. I mean, I think that that's something I would want to convey with you is like, yes, it's time for them, but they really enjoy working with Truman applicants, right? It's just a different type of engagement that they can have with students. And it gets us excited because we see like, yes, there is a little hope in the world. There are people who want to make things better. It's great. So thank you all. All right, and then we also have stickers because now we have stickers in our office. As you see on my lovely side too. You're all set, so I'm happy to stay and answer questions, but we are good. I'm gonna stop this. Yeah.